remember very distinctly coming back. I lived in Terre Haute, Indiana. At that time, my parents lived in Terre Haute, Indiana. I joined the American Legion. I have nothing against the American Legion, but this little story is about it. I dressed up one night to go down to the American Legion to my first meeting, and there was a guy sitting at the bar. He says, "What outfit you from?" I said, "The 106th. Oh, he said, "You're the bastards that let the Germans through the lines." Ooh. I turned around and walked out. I never went back to another terrorist organization for years.
That's pretty intense.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to describe the feeling.
I understand.
I was happy. I wanted to be an American Legion member because that seemed the thing to do. And this, excuse me, jerk pops out and says what he said. Yeah.
Remember this anecdote, because when we talk a little bit later on, I want to draw a parallel there. Okay. Yeah. So, did you ever go back to the American Legion?
Not for a long time.
But you say not for a long time. Does that mean that you did?
I don't even remember what year. No, I never. I belonged to VFW for a lot of years, but I never really attended too many meetings. I just joined because it seemed the thing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I still don't go to those meetings because ever since we moved up here in the 87, whatever it was, I got connected with the Veterans Organization, VA, and they have an Ex-POW group, which is just fantastic.
Really?
Yeah.
This is what the National Veterans Administration?
We meet the second and third weeks on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. When we first started meeting, back when it was, whatever year I started, there was like 35 guys around the table. We're down to 4.
Wow.
2 of those, one other guy that meets with us is from my division on another regiment. He got captured with the 424th. And we've got 2 guys from Baton Corregidor.
Whoa.
That's all we have left at the meeting. I'm not sure that's all we have left in the system.
Right, but that's all we have
left that goes to this POW meeting.
Right.
And those guys, my God, they walked miles and miles and miles and miles.
Well, it doesn't look like you had a short hike.
No, but that was no, that was not a short hike. And
okay, so
if you read my diary, you know I collapsed on the last day.
They kind of scooped you up, right?
Yeah.
And was there an individual interrogation? Did they ask you specifically questions, or?
No, the question, yes, we were asked questions, but there were very few, and I can't remember exactly what they were, but they were not tough interrogations, you know what I mean?
Okay.
They knew, Christ, they had 6,200 of us. They didn't have to talk to too many guys before they knew the whole story. Mm-hmm. And we were just a young division that were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and we got scooped up.
And how old again were you?
I spent my 20th birthday. I signed into the German government on my 20th birthday. That would have been, I'd have to look, January, when I finally signed in. I was captured December the 19th, I believe. And it was, I think it was on my birthday that I finally signed into it, January the 10th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long were you a POW?
I was only 4 months.
Okay.
When I sat beside a guy that was 3 years and 4 months a prisoner, it makes me feel about this tall. He said, "Don't worry."
Yeah. So, if anything did, good come out of being a POW, what was probably the best thing that happened?
Came out of my POW?
Yeah.
I made a smart answer on that. Getting liberated.
Yeah. Getting
liberated was the best thing that happened. That's a kind of a smart answer.
Do you remember anything?
I can't really. No, we were just joyful. My God, you see, when I was liberated, I believe it was at Helmstead. My memory's getting bad, as you can tell, but we were in a bombing raid. We didn't know the Americans were behind us. We didn't know the Americans were near us. we were in a bombing raid, so we headed for the ditches, and the ditches along there were nothing but big boulders, and they went down 30 or 40 feet. And when the bombing raid was over, we had to crawl back up the big rocks to the road. I made the last rock and collapsed. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move my legs, I couldn't move my arms. My buddy, I had a good buddy, and you had to have a good buddy in those circumstances. That was my staff, that was my, every machine gun platoon has the squads. Let's call it the A and B squad, and they have a section sergeant. That would have been a staff sergeant. I was a buck sergeant, which is 3 stripes. Our leader between the 2 squads was a staff sergeant, which is the 3 stripes plus a rocker underneath. That's called staff sergeant. And Staff Sergeant George Crothamel and I were together and walked that whole route during, he was my buddy. He kept me alive. And going up that wall, he was behind me, and he was pushing on my rear end to get me up over that rock, and then some other guys come up and lifted me out. And yeah, I would have to, if a guy didn't have a buddy, I think he would go nuts, you know?
Did everyone seem to have a buddy?
Well, it seemed like they grouped up into groups of 2, maybe 4, sometimes 6, you know. You just about had to. You had to have somebody to lean your shoulder on. It was not pleasant conditions.
Was it a two-way kind of a deal? You leaned on him and he leaned on you?
Yeah, we must have, he told me, I didn't meet George after the war for a long time, and I had the opportunity to be with him, I think 3 times after, later on. I can't remember what dates they were. But we talked about it, and he said, you helped me just as much as I helped you. See?
You make it sound like you just, like, once the experience was over, that you just went different ways, different lives.
We went to different hospitals, different camps. No, we didn't stay together.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I can't remember the exact details, but I don't think I caught up with him for quite a while after the war.
Can you remember anything about the day-to-day experience in the POW camp?
Well, yeah, I can remember seeing the barracks and the thousands of guys in one. There were hundreds of guys in one barracks where there was probably 50 to start with, and we're probably a couple hundred. You know, yeah, I can visualize the camps.
What was life like? What happened when you were in the camp?
There wasn't any real life. You just you went to, well, yeah, there was a life, but you fell out in the morning for a head count. You milled around the camp all day long. You had to get to bed at a certain time. That was about it. And they were crammed into a barracks. Like a regular, they were barracks similar to our American barracks at that time. They just had you crammed in to a lot of guys in a small space.
So what was the process like coming back after you got liberated? I mean, you spent time in hospitals, right? And
yeah, when I was liberated, I was put into an American evacuation hospital, treated a little bit there, put onto a C-47 twin-engine aircraft, flown from there to, I'd have to reread my diary, you can read it. I was flown from the point where I was liberated at Helmstedt to another camp, like an evacuation hospital, a tent city. It was like a big tent city. And we started getting nourishing food then. And then I can't remember how many days later it was, I was put on they sent me, I think it was Le Havre, France, where I ended up, in the evacuation hospital from the German, where I was captured in Germany to there. I flew in a C-54, that's a 4-engine airplane, from Le Havre, France, to the United States. Landed there. As I described in my diary, the first night we got there, I think it was a Sunday night, the mess hall had supper ready. We went in and we ate every bit of food. There was about 23 of us, I think, on the plane, and we ate everything up again. All you did then was eat, you know.
Yeah, you had lost a lot of weight in the camp, right?
Oh, no, I forget what I said, 51 pounds. I weighed 170. I'm getting that bad now. I'm down to about 145 now, and I've lost. I just called the VA just before you got here. I'm a little concerned about my weight loss right now. Has nothing to do with being a prisoner of a German lady. Well,
She's getting even with you now, huh?
she feeds me well, you know. It's just that I'm getting old. I'm 85 years old. I'm still trying to keep up with Jeff playing golf, you know. And I think I'm in good shape, really. But I didn't realize, for a long time I weighed around 150, 152.
You remember how much you weighed when you first enlisted?
No.
Okay.
I'd have to look at I'd have to do a little searching
Yeah.
to find that out. I played 4 years of basketball. I was in great shape.
Yeah.
You know, great shape. I had no trouble with basic training. I could march all day long, but when I came back, well, you know, I had to recoup and regain my weights and regain my equilibrium, let's put it that way.
And you've gone back several times, right?
I've gone back 5 times. 2 of those times I helped start, but being the editor of the magazine, I was always prominent in the association. And I can't remember all the details, but over on one trip over there, Margot had gone back. Margot is the German, and we had gone back, and we met a couple over there in Belgium, and got real well acquainted with them, and they let us know that some Germans in that area had been inquiring about how they could meet with other soldiers they were in the Battle of the Bulge too, of course, and they wanted to meet with Americans that had been in the Battle of the Bulge. So eventually what happened was there were 2 meetings held, and please forgive me for not remembering the dates, I'd have to look. They were 2 years apart whenever they happened. But we met with a whole group of German soldiers who had been in the same area and the soldiers we had fought against. It was a fantastic experience. I can't say anything bad about it, you know. It was just like you fought a war, I fought a war, and we ended up being buddies. We were friendly with each other. I only remember one incident during the first meeting when there was a German got up. He had been, we noticed him, Margot being German, could understand everything that was going on. Evidently, this one German told his buddies, excuse my language, but what the hell were we meeting with these Americans for? He walked out, and the rest of them stayed, and we became good friends in sense.
Okay, so you had one guy that was kind of...
One disruptive guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the first meeting, and then we went back a couple of years later, and it's just like meeting with, just like I would meet with you someplace, you know. It was a friendly group. After all, they went through as much as we did, if you stop to think about it. And no soldier in a war is without being damaged, physically or mentally. And so we enjoyed the people we met with. If they didn't like us, you know, they wouldn't be there. And if we weren't inquisitive enough to wonder what they were feeling, we wouldn't have gone over.
What was it like from the other guy?
Yeah, what's it like from the other guy? It was a fantastic experience. I would like to do it again, but my good friend that I met through these is Marie and Joseph Royce. That's a German soldier. We were good friends. Of course, Margot being German helps because the fluent conversation. They were wonderful people.
Wow.
And we were their house guests both times we were over there, Margot and I. They were just wonderful people, but they've since passed away, and a lot of our guys have passed away. So I'm still here talking to you. Thank God.